Yesterday, when we started, I wanted to give you a sense of the quality of the basic theme of what it is to be a projector, which is the theme of recognition. You know, when you look at all the other types, there really isn't anything that's like that. That is, it's the only thematic of a type that points specifically towards awareness and intellectual development. And I think it's one of the real dilemmas that projectors have, particularly projector children who are raised incorrectly and all the things that go with that, is not being able to see your proper place on the material plane. I think it's one of the most difficult things for projectors is to find their place on the material plane. I mean, after all, we live on a planet that's dominated by energy types, and specifically by generators. And generators are here to work. I mean, this is what they're here for. This is what that energy is all about. It becomes the dynamic theme of the way in which sort of generators brought Calvinism. It's the generator frequency of working hard and being satisfied in your work and enjoying the rewards of your hard labor. And it's really what has infected humanity. That is, the rest of us who are not generators, and I can include myself because I'm a manifestors, projectors, reflectors, we have undefined sacral centers. We incarnate onto the planet. We come out of the womb, and there's already, help wanted and job direction signals that are immediately placed in front of us. And there's this incredible shock that goes through the projector and goes through the manifestor or reflector when they actually enter into the world. I mean, you come into the world with the assumption that you're just going to slide along, because that's what it is to be non-sacral. You're here to just slide along. Life is very nice. I mean, if you think about the non-sacral being is here to know how to enjoy life. The sacral being is here to work. The work is the enjoyment. The work is the satisfaction. But for the rest of us, the work is the burden. I mean, it's a real burden. And the only thing about being a non-sacral being and living on this planet is that we're the ones that when we stand there at the altar of adulthood and we look out at that horizon of work, we go, shit. Really? I've got to do this? Not only do I have to do this, do I have to be paid so badly that I don't have enough money to enjoy myself, and I'm here to enjoy myself? And that they tell me that the only way I'm going to enjoy myself is if I work more, so I have more money for the 8 minutes out of every day that I can enjoy? This is the shock that comes to a non-sacral being. It's like, whoa, I didn't come here to work. You didn't come here to work. You didn't come here to be a slave on the material plane. You did not. You did not come here to be burdened by the ordeal of work. Getting up in the morning, all of those horrendous things that you have to do, waiting for a paycheck, seeing that most of it has been taken by some government somewhere. This is horror for a projector. I mean, horror. Projectors basically, if you could tune into what they thought they were going to get when they arrived here, it would look very different. They would say, I have 3 generators, they work. And I'm going to sit here and I'm going to guide them in my wisdom so that they get real satisfaction out of their work, and they're going to pay me whatever I like. Because this is fundamentally what projectors are all about. Look, you're not here to put your shoulder to the wheel. This is generator work. All right? You grind away and you build things and all that stuff. But then again, they've got this very powerful motor that defines what they are. It does. We don't have that. And what you have as projectors is that you only have one thing that gives you that gateway to not being a slave. I used to joke that, my job in this life was to free slaves. I was referring to generators because they are the natural slaves. But then, of course, you have the super slaves. That's you. This is the projector world. Super, super, super slaves. I mean, uber slaves. The ultimate slaves are projectors. Ultimate slaves. Because you end up amplifying all that work. You're conditioned to it. You get locked into it. You spend your whole life exhausted. I mean, exhausted. Most projectors get to the end of the day and it's like, can I have a break here? Can I have a really long break? And you're too exhausted anyway. You end up going to sleep and wake up to the horror that you've got to do it all over again. And there is nothing more dangerous for projectors than exhaustion. You're not here to work. You're not. This is not what you're about. You're here to think. You're here to see. You're here to express an outer authority that provides guidance. You're here to organize energy. You're here to guide energy. And you're here to get rewarded for that. You're not here to be the worker. You're not. And you see, it's like if you go back to, Hindu Brahmin India, you go back to that whole tradition. They developed a caste system, which wasn't particularly racial as a caste system. It was occupational. You had certain hierarchies. Every caste had its own job that it did. This is the way it worked. You're a caste. This is the projector caste, and you all should be raised from the moment you come into the world to be guides. From the moment that you come into the world to be trained to take supervisory management positions. I mean, there is nothing like the horror of a projector on the floor of a factory. I mean, wow. Maybe 25 years of horror later, they might get to middle management and suddenly have, a certain kind of relief, that they're in that. They finally made their way out of that morass. I see projectors, with their businesses and their stuff. They drive themselves mad. Because they're flying around on the slave energy, trying to be generators, trying to get things done, trying to build things, instead of being in a natural position where they are guiding other people to do that. Now, it's not like all the generators in the world would enjoy this description. They wouldn't. I mean, they've been freed as slaves. It's not like they want to be somebody else's, you do this, you do that. It's what makes it so different, this ascendancy of projector, the presence now of this projector force on the planet. And there's a lot of you, after all. I mean, 1.5 billion projectors on planet Earth. That's a lot of projectors. It's a lot of super slaves. It's a lot of people that are going to die too soon, of exhaustion, of, complete, absolute fatigue and burnout. Because this is the greatest threat to projectors. This is how generators kill off projectors. And they do, right? You're a projector and you're living with a generator. Right? It all sounds good on paper, right? Only on paper does that sound good. Only. You're a projector, right? You got this energy inside of you and it's bubbling and it's cooking and it's amplifying and you're dealing with that energy. The typical projector generator couple, they're sitting in front of the television, right? The generator has been doing all the cranking, the projector is amplifying. The generator says, I'm tired, I'm going to sleep. The projector stays in front of the tube for hours. For hours. on the generator's energy, not theirs. And then they're absolutely exhausted. You have things like sleep anemia and all of these problems that people have with their backs, with their kidneys. All of this is projector ailments. Go to sleep exhausted, go to sleep burned out, wake up in the morning not refreshed, get caught in the same cycle. Now, I'm not suggesting that you never have anything to do with generators. I wouldn't do such a thing. What I'm suggesting is that you be wise in the nature of your relationships. I think this is, there's two things to understand about being here on this plane in this life. One is you have to be correct for yourself. The next is you got to turn around and see that the world's filled with people, so you got to deal with them. And you really do need to be able to discern who is correct for you and what is correct for you. But the first thing to understand about what it is to be an adult projector is that an adult projector has already long ago abandoned the fact that they are at the top of the heap. They never got to see it. They never got to realize it. They don't believe it. Remember that only the projector is given such a thing as success as a signature. That's a very difficult thing when you think about it, because it means that failure is so much a part of what it is to be a projector. That failure is always lingering for the projector. And it's the failure that comes when the projector is not a projector and is not ready to claim their rightful place. Look, in a world that's been run by not self-generators for so long, everybody's chasing after things. This is the way you're conditioned when you come into the world. This is the way your culture works. It's pointing you towards chasing after this and chasing after that, and you've got to get this and you've got to get that, and you have to do this and you have to do that. You're a projector. I had a young American projector, Don. I met him many, many years ago in my early years in touring in the States. And he was a projector that was just throat to the G center, very open. And he came looking for me in Ibiza, where I lived, and hung around my place for a couple of weeks. And I went to the beach with him one day, and I'm lying there in the sun, and every few minutes he gets up and runs into the sea. Every few minutes he's up and he's running and roaring into the sea, comes back, lies down, gets up, running. And at some point I said to him, "You're a no-motor projector, right?" Projectors are so used to not being projectors. And he was totally exhausted from all of that. At the end of the day, this was one burnt-out creature. Here's a no-motor projector, jumping up, running around, back and forth, no awareness as to, who they really are. Look, if you're really a projector, everybody who ever gets to know you at some level or another will resent the fact that you're good at it. Because if you're really a good projector, boy, do you slide. Things just come your way. They're just there. Everybody else is struggling for this and that, and it's just there. And you see, you don't get that until you are 100% ready to see if it's there. It's the most difficult thing about being a projector, is that you're so deeply conditioned that it's very difficult to just let go and start from scratch. Because you got all this stuff that you're hooked on, and all of this stuff that you think, because you're very connected to the way in which life on the planet is organized. I'll get to that. That's our subject today. In other words, you're designed to have a specific relationship to the other, to groups, all of those things. But of course, you can never develop that, as long as you're like them. As long as you're not what you are. And you see, only when you're ready to be a projector, I mean really ready to be a projector, will you see that it's all there for you. Otherwise, you don't get to slide. You don't. You really don't. And that's what your life is about. You're not tied down by generating and manifesting. They have rules, and their rules are heavy rules. They have their own trip. It's not who you are. You're here to recognize. Look, if you look at the energy on the planet and the way the energy is used on this planet, everybody knows, even a simpleton, there's something wrong. I mean, you don't have to be a political scientist to understand that there's something wrong the way in which all of this is working. How is it that we can put so much energy into building weapons and we can't put the same amount of energy into helping human beings? I mean, just obvious things, simple things. Any idiot can figure that out. But the reality is that the only way that energy is going to be organized is if it's organized by projectors. That's what projectors are for. The dilemma is that they're not like me. They're not manifestors that say, pay attention or fuck off. Because you can't do that as a projector. You can't. They'll beat you up. They'll hurt you. You don't want to do that. So don't ever do that. Let manifestors do that. So the dilemma is that you actually have to wait for them. Think about that, because it's really, when you think about it, it's wild. You have to wait for them to ask you to beat them up. Do you know what I mean? You have to wait for them to invite you to be in charge. You have to wait for them to ask you to do this and that so that they can get their energy trip together. See, that's the difference. That's the difference between what it used to be, you whip them all into shape, and what it is to be a projector. Now look, I tried to give you a sense of how profound your aura is. How powerful your aura is. But you have to see something about aura. Your aura communicates. It does. It communicates. It communicates essential things. It's communicating your design to the other being. So let's say that you're a projector that has some tribal activation, and, there is obviously a part of you that can guide the way energy works in those environments. It's in your aura. I mean, it's not like you have to put your hand up in the air and say, I've got the 4037, and I'm a projector, and, don't do that. It's there. And if they don't pick it up, so what? They're never going to be for you. Again, remember that you can't get into I missed it business. If you're going to be an entrepreneur and you're going to be a manifestor, it's easy. No, really. Manifestors are perfect for entrepreneurialism. Get up, get it done, go out there, blah, blah, blah. Most of the entrepreneurs in the world are generators, and they're always in trouble. Because they're always trying to manifest something. They're always trying to make it happen. And then there's the projectors. If you don't have your own built-in energy, you always owe somebody money. Projectors and business, when you're not carrying your own energy, and you're going to try to do something on your own, and you're going to try to make things happen, everybody else owns you. The bank owns you, your employees own you, your partners own you, everybody owns you. You see, to be a projector is something very different. It has nothing to do with this whole energy manifestation on this plane and the way in which the wheel gets turned by the energy types. Because after all, we're 75% of humanity. We're cranking all the time. And the real dilemma is that all that generator power, there is so much wastage that is there in the energy. It's enormous. And here are all these projectors going around and looking at all of this and hating it because they see it. And they can't tell these people because they get resented for it. They can't at all. And if you try too hard, you know what comes back. It's a hell of a backlash that you're going to get. What do you know? You're not working, See, if you don't start from the core of what you are, you're always going to be in the not-self game and never get out. See, one of the things about the knowledge that I've seen over these couple of decades now that I've been doing this, unless you take a radical approach, you never get a radical result. If the approach is, gee, that's interesting, and I'll try this, and it's nice to know this piece of information, and, human design can be very informative. It gives you insights into fundamental things. But it doesn't mean just because you know what this is that you're going to live your life as yourself. It doesn't mean being interested in this information means that you're going to wake up or be aware. It doesn't mean any of that. It's just another thing, after all. It's like all things. It's really about grasping that if you're going to really live the projector's life, you have to see that there's an enormous conditioning history that you need to step away from. And it's not about cutting yourself off from those people that are in your life, been in your life, any of those things. It's about seeing that if you actually become a projector, you will have your own, filtering system that will ultimately filter out what is not correct for you. But, if you don't surrender to being a projector, you never get to be a projector. You don't. You don't. And of course the trap is that you've got all these beings that you're dependent on, and all the conditioning that has come from that. And there you are in the middle of your processes with whatever bills, mortgages, this, that, the economy, concerns about jobs. It goes on and on and on. And you can see what happens to all the projectors. They just get caught in repeating the same patterns over and over and over again. And you're not going to be able to see what an invitation is if you're busy manifesting most of the time. Because even the invitations that come your way get distorted because you're not correct in the way in which you deal with them. And you're not being seen. Human design is about differentiation. Differentiation. Every single human being has the potential to be unique. And you see, that uniqueness that you carry is inherent in your design on the surface. What's there in your body graph, the gates, the channels. This is the aspects that make up this uniqueness that's part of what you're here to be recognized for. You're not here to be recognized for some abstract. You're here to be recognized for precisely what you are. And it's only when you're getting that recognition are you going to get the invitations, and are you going to see that the invitations are always there. They're always there. These are not random events. They're not. They're always there. It's about awareness. You either see them or you don't see them. Most projectors have their generator blinders on. I don't really see anything other than what I think I need now. The thing I have to do. The thing that I got to do despite the fact that I'm exhausted. The thing that I have to do to correct the mess that somebody else made, and I'm going to be exhausted correcting that mess because they didn't listen to me in the first place. And it goes on and on and on. And you see, you never get to live out the life that is the projector's life. I'll tell you a story, or something like that. One of the illustrations I gave you, the Penta and Wa illustration. We live in a program. It's probably the most important thing to remember is that we live in a program. And what I mean by that is that we live in a constantly shifting, imprinting field. Life on this planet is organized. It's not random. And we are organized by different kinds of auric forms. When I was given the knowledge, I wasn't given human design. Now, I was given the design of forms. The design of forms, human is one of them. There's a unique design for mammals, and a unique design for birds and reptiles and fish, and for insects and for cells. There are unique design matrices for all of these. I was also told about two transpersonal forms. what you're looking at in that illustration. That is the penta, and the penta is an auric form that emerges the moment that you bring three people together. And it is a form that works for groups of 3, 4, and 5. It is actually the core of family. Penta, and you can see the illustration, you can see it, it's the brown, the yellow, and the red, and you can see that there's these 12 different aspects to it in those boxes. Basically what you're looking at is the channels that exist between the throat center and the sacral center going through the G center. In other words, these three channels in the center of the body graph. This is where the penta is formed. Now the whole thing to grasp about what happens to us is that your form is never static, it's never stable. I mean, think about it. You have a unique design, the unique design that you see in your body graph on a piece of paper. Right? But that unique design has never, ever looked that way, other than the exact second you were born. Because from that moment onward, you're in a program. There are always things that are connecting to your design. You're in the aura of your mother, your father, your siblings. There's always connections to your design. When you go to sleep, your design changes. When you meet another person and you step into their aura, your design changes. It changes in the sense that a new aura emerges. One of the most fascinating areas in human design work is looking at relationships, at connections between human beings. And of course, because of the way in which the dynamics are structured, you can actually see the way you do connect to the other, these various ways in which we, integrate our two auras together. And what you get is a third thing. You get the thing that emerges, the thing that is neither you nor the other person, but it's the thing that happens when the two of you are together. Now, the moment that there's three of you, there's another kind of aura that forms. This is the penta aura. Now, the penta is a fascinating thing, because the penta is the bedrock of the way in which humanity is organized, and it starts with the family. This particular graphic, this pentagraphic, is used in two different programs in human design. There's a version that is used for family analysis, in which people are trained to analyze the way in which families operate through these matrices, which, by the way, is incredible stuff. And on the other side of that, it's used for business analysis. That is, small business analysis, being able to understand the dynamics of small groups and the way in which they work, and the way in which you can help them be more effective and efficient in the way in which they operate. Now, projectors. Projectors are designed to be able to control pentas. This is what they're designed for. That is, every single projector built into them is the potential to guide groups. Now, how does that work? First thing is to think about where we're going. We all grow up in pentas, but we grow up in unconscious pentas. In other words, most human beings, unless you show them how this works, it's very difficult to even understand the mechanism itself. And I'm obviously not going to do that in this class. I've done long courses on all of that stuff. It's just about understanding that the way in which we are organized is very, very specific. We are organized into these small groups, and these small groups then can come together and form larger groups, which we see in the WA diagram, where the WA is 3 pentas and an alpha. That alpha, that single being that has the potential to guide that complexity, that is naturally a projector. The natural leader of any small group, 3 to 5 people, the natural leader of that group is a projector. So when a projector comes into the world, they're coming into the world in terms of design evolution to fulfill a responsibility. That is, to fulfill a need to be able to organize the way in which humanity works, not individuals. Not individuals. You know, if a projector is going to bring Satori to the other, it's bringing it to a group and not to an individual, even though projectors are the most efficient beings at connecting one-on-one with the other. The dilemma is energy. It's energy. Everything about this story comes back to energy. The projector is the ultimate non-energy type. This is the dominant, 22% of humanity. Now you have to understand something about what's there and what's not there. The moment you look at your design and you see your openness, the first thing that you can look at is that's where I get conditioned. That's where I'm vulnerable. That's where I'm open. That's where the other can influence me. But the moment that you're operating correctly, that is the moment that you're, operating without your mind being the decision-making agency, that is, you're operating through your strategy and authority, that openness then becomes your potential wisdom. It becomes the thing that you really get to master because it's a thing you're constantly taking in from different sources. You can assess it, you can recognize it, you can put your label on it, you can deal with it. So you're a non-energy type. Now think about that. The world's dominated by energy types. 75% of humanity are energy types. So the projector is here to understand, to have wisdom about the way in which energy is used. It all goes back to energy. If I'm talking to a generator, I'm saying to them, look, the only way you're ever going to be satisfied in this life, only way, is to be able to use your energy in a way that is satisfying for you. In other words, if you use your energy effectively as a generator, you're going to be content, you're going to be satisfied. But the generator can't decide how to use their energy because that's not their gift. Their gift is to respond to direction. Their gift is to respond to stimulus, and it's that stimulus that's going to move them to use their energy correctly. Now, you're here to deliver the stimulus. I mean, this is what projectors are for. See, most projectors end up struggling in the whole ladder business. Struggling financially, struggling in the hierarchy, all of those things because they're constantly being conditioned to play out a role that is not theirs. It's not theirs. If you're a projector and you're going for a job in which you do not have guidance responsibility, you're in the wrong work. It's not what you're here to do. And, I can hear all of that stuff, the not-self questions that arise out of that kind of statement. Well, what am I going to do? There's not all those jobs available and blah, 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 and I got to make a living. But you're a projector. And until you surrender to being a projector, you won't see that those things are there. You can't. It's like saying to a projector that you cannot find love. You can't find it, you can't chase it, you can't look for it, because it's never going to be the love that matters. You have to be invited into love. If you're not invited into love, there's nothing to do. There isn't. And, the response is always the same. But who is going to invite me? And how long do I have to wait? And it's never going to happen, and it's not true, and but that's the not-self. It's the not-self experience of never being who you are, never being a projector. I mean, I know so many projectors, and they're not projectors. I mean, yes, they have certain traits that we can all distinguish as projector traits. And most of those seen in the negative because, they're so deeply conditioned. And you see all of these things about where you are in the hierarchy and what it means to really be accomplished as a projector is about surrendering. You have to surrender. You have to surrender to waiting. This is the great killer. This is the conditioning that comes from Western consciousness that says if I don't do it now, it's not going to happen. And if I wait, it's never going to come. And, basically I'm not worthy. Why should it come to me? And who's going to invite me to a good job and to love and, blah, 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 and all of that stuff. But until you live The projector life, you don't get that. You really don't. I mean, I can feel it in your frequency. I mean, I know this movie. Been there, done that. It's very easy to look at information and say, oh, interesting. Yeah. Oh, that's true. Oh, yeah, I know that. Oh, yeah. I'm a 3, you're a 6, I'm a 9. You're this, you're that. I know all that. But living it? I mean, living it is another story entirely. First of all, it means you have to start at the very basic of dealing with the fact that your mind is screwing up your life. This is where you start. You start with understanding that your mind has been interfering with your possibility for success from day one. This is the mental trip of so many projectors, eh? I mean, not just projectors, but in projectors, because you're here to recognize. It gets so convoluted and distorted in the way in which you go through all these mental machinations over all of these minutiae in your process. And most of it because they're things that, you meet resistance. I mean, projectors meet resistance all the time. All the time. I mean, get into the elevator with a generator who doesn't know they're a generator. Say something to them, and they'll immediately show you resistance. I mean, instantaneously. What are you putting your energy in me for? Back off. Until you really live what it is to be a projector. And the only way that you can do that, number one, is your mind has to stop ordering you around. Because that's what it's doing. It orders you around. It's this thing that doesn't know 18 black from 14 blue. It doesn't know. It's not going to give you the answer. Your mind is never going to give you your answer. It doesn't do that. It doesn't know what it is anyway. And isn't going to find it out. All it can do is go like this. There's this and there's this. There's this and there's that. This is the mind. It isn't going to do anything else for you. And the way in which human beings operate on this plane is that they take what their mind says. Oh, we shouldn't do that today. And then the next thing they're doing is calling somebody up and canceling. If your mind runs your life, you're never, ever going to know success. You can't. It's not its job. And all your mental stuff does is it sets you up into situations where you've got to find energy that you don't have in order to be able to deal with problems you didn't want. And the years that it takes you, bad marriages, bad investments, it goes on and on and on. And then you get, and it's not like when your mind tells you to do something and it all goes to hell, that you suddenly decide that your mind isn't going to do that for you anymore. Because that's just what it does. It will tell you some other cockamamie thing to do. And off you go, well, this time. Until the bitterness gets so heavy, and you get so sour about all of that you basically give up. You just find some place to be a slave, and you just spend the rest of your life being a slave. Making somebody else successful, having somebody else take, your auric power and convert it into their process. You don't want that. Yet at the same time, to be a projector is actually a deeply radical thing. It is. See, until you get to the point where you're ready to die of boredom, waiting for something to happen, only when you can make that step, only when you're ready to just say, if it all falls apart, I'll deal with it, just watch the movie and see what comes to you. Otherwise, it amazes me. I get so many people who have relationships one way or another to the New Age. And all these fuzzy people, they're always talking about spirituality and surrender and all of this stuff. Well, then, it should be easy, no? You live the life of a projector, which means that you allow life to deliver. It does. We're so busy trying to get life to be what we want it to be. Generators mostly. This pattern that we've established, that we change the topography, that we play with evolution, we do all of these things, we're doing all of this manipulation. You're here just to let it come to you. It is actually there. I mean, that's the magic. That's when you finally get that smile on your face that says, oh, I didn't realize it was there. It is there. So think about what happens to you when you're following your strategy and authority. Your body. The only part of you that really has any right to navigate on this plane is your body, because it's part of the material context. It is what it is. You follow your strategy and authority, and your body surfs the Maya. It moves its way through. You don't have to be concerned. And yet it's so threatening, isn't it? I know, because of course you're all caught up in projector, not self-projector clinginess. The clinging, holding on to that little piece of energy over there, this little thing over there, having to run around and do all of that stuff that you don't really want to do, but at the same time you don't really want to let go of the safety valves. That you sneak in those little manifesting moments. That's not what you are. And that's the killer, because you're either going to be a projector or not. You're either going to live what it is to be a projector or not. There's no middle ground. Honestly, there is absolutely no middle ground. There's one or the other. And you see, if you're going to actually claim your place in the hierarchy, that's the only way you get there. And it's only in that place that others are actually going to recognize you. See, you can't escape that. You can't. Projectors are always being recognized, but a fucked up, messed up projector is always recognized as a potential slave. And it's not that the other person has to have that kind of consciousness or awareness. It just feels that way. They get it. And then you get locked into the bonds because of the way you were. I mean, think about what a trap it is to be a projector with your focused aura on somebody. The assumption is that focused aura is actually a bond. To the other person, it feels like a bond. To the other person, it's like, wow, I'm getting all this attention. They really connected to me, and I want them around. I'll find something for them to do. Don't you get trapped in your own design? You have to see what your aura does, is that your aura is your business card. I'm a projector. I have this channel. This is what I'm good at. This is what I'm recognized for. This is what I would like to do. You invite me to this, and I'll say yes. Without you having to do anything. Without you having to stand up like a manifester and say, I'm here. It comes to you. See, this is when you go from mechanics to the pure, unadulterated spiritual. Because there is no other way. See, you're not ready to surrender your messed up lives. You're not. I mean, you know that. You got all that stuff that's hanging around in your lives. All that stuff. And until you're ready to surrender that, until you're ready to surrender to not knowing what that is ever going to be, until then you don't get to live out what it is to be you. That's the radical. The radical is, I'm going to wait for invitations. I'm not going to let people into my life unless they're correct. I am not going to do, no matter what the circumstances are, I'm not going to do something that's not correct for me to do. You're not going to starve. You know, you're not going to get lost. You're going to discover your life. It is what it's all about. And you see, this is the dilemma that we have. Projectors are new. And yet at the same time, this is the first generation of projectors that know that they're projectors, some of them. It's the first opportunity to begin to grasp the mechanics of the way in which you're supposed to be in the world. You've been so deeply conditioned. You've had all of this heavy conditioning in your life. It doesn't seem like, it's an easy thing to just let go of all of these notions and all of these problems that you have and start fresh. You don't start fresh, there's nothing you can do, really. And it's a process. I mean, some of you are very new to this. It's quite a process to awaken in this life. It's not an easy thing. Yes, strategy and authority is a great panacea. It is. It makes it easy for everybody. It gives them basic tools that they can work with to navigate on this plane, but it doesn't mean that it erases all of those things that you're carrying inside of you. The basic dilemmas, the buttons that anybody can push to get to you, the way in which you can be dragged into all kinds of things that are not correct for you. The way in which you begin to normalize bitterness. I mean, you begin to take it for granted. You begin to accept that that's part of your basic dynamic. And it changes the way you look at life. Projectors can have a very, very dark view of life on this plane. There is a lot of sourness and regret and all of these things that are built out of that. And it takes away from the glow of what, in fact, is the exaltation of your design. You are here to guide. And yet, you can't even guide yourselves. And this is a real dilemma for the planet, after all, because you've got all these generators running around, trying to go in any direction that they think they want to go, because again, they're not self. And in the end, we all pay the price for it, because we all have to live in a generator world. And we all have to deal with the frustration that's here on this plane. And out of that frustration, you end up being in a frustrating world in which you're filled with dismay and bitterness about how it's turned out for you. That's not nice. That's not the kind of thing that you were looking forward to in an incarnation. Come into a sour, dark, frustrating plane. And, nobody can do this for you. I can't do it for you. And nobody can help you do this. It's something that has to come from within you when it's correct for it to come within you. To see that if you're going to be a projector, then live it. Don't just be interested in the elements of it, because you don't get to live your life, and you don't get the recognition you need. You need to be recognized. It's the only thing that actually ever will make you feel good, is to be recognized. It's out of that recognition that comes respect. It's out of that respect that you get to develop your own self-respect, that you begin to see that you can make a valued contribution on this plane. See, most projectors, and it's why I have this theme of groups today, is most projectors get sucked into the group. It's basically what I'm going to show you today, those of you that are susceptible to being, sucked into small groups or into larger groupings, and how you get lost in there, and how the real value of who you are as a human being, the potential that you have for society. Because again, that's the thing that's so fascinating to me about the nature of projector, is that projector, in a sense, is the only really altruistic design. That is, this is the only type that is designed to be able to be of value to the humanity as a whole. That is, you're not going to be complete, until you're able to guide forces that are doing things that you will not do, and being able to guide them to be able to operate effectively and efficiently, and for them to be satisfied. This is what you're here to do. So it means that if you're looking at the material plane, and somebody wants you to be, a gopher, this is not what you're here for. I know so many projectors that are, not self-gophers. They'll run around, go for this and go for that. It's a pun. They end up going for this and going for that for all kinds of things. And it's not where you belong. And you see, most people, when you think about it, most people are afraid to make any demands. Have you noticed that? You want a job, right? You don't have a job. You need money. You go into some place that, job opportunity. It's not like you go in there with any demands. A projector going into that particular situation is basically on their knees praying. Please give me the job because you want me to be a slave? Yes, I'm a good slave. I really am. You're only going to pay me that much? Oh, it's okay. I'm a good slave. Instead of walking in there and saying, if it's interesting to them, yeah, this is interesting, but, I would really like to be doing this and not that. And I want this much money and not that. There's this fundamental fear that they're going to throw you out and say, no, thank you. And some of them might. But you see, you don't know what it is to be a projector until you live that power. Somebody invites you. Think about it. Manifestors look at projectors and generators and say, these whiny little bastards, they're always whining. You always have so many advantages. You just do. If you're a projector and somebody invites you to do a job, right? They invite you. They want you. They're asking you. You can say, yes, but. Nothing has more power in this life than yes, but. That but, wow, it's huge. It says, yeah, but I'd like this, and this, and this, and this, whatever it is. Whatever you recognize, whatever is suitable for you, you make your demand. They invited you. They want something from you. So if they want something from you, well, make your demand. All right, yes, but if it's a yes. Projectors don't do that. Not self-projectors. They don't do that. Oh, thank you, they say, No but. Because you don't have a sense of your own worth. You don't have a sense of how powerful your potential is in being able to fulfill those kinds of responsibilities where you can guide others and so forth and so on. See, every single projector on this planet, if they were correct, all of them, the billion of them, would always be in a situation where their potential as a projector is what they're doing. They're recognizing and guiding according to whatever their nature and education is. Remember something. All of this is predicated on you not being ignorant. Remember, if you're a projector, there's a job that has to do with a certain work skill, whatever kind of skill is involved. If you have not done your homework and have a background in that skill, it's not like you can make any demands. And you're only going to be recognized because you have depth in that area. And it goes back to what I talked about yesterday. If you're a projector and you haven't mastered something, you're screwed. Because there's no way to get the recognition that you're here to receive. The projector child, that is invited, that gets to enter into the kind of career that they really love because it's coming out of an invitation, they're building up a resource for recognition that's going to be there for the rest of their lives. I'm not suggesting that you go into a job and you don't know what the hell you're doing and you make some kind of crazy demand. What I'm talking about is that if you're going in with that skill set and they want to put you 4 layers down, to start over here, well, we'll start you down over here. No. No, that's not what I do. I do this over here. And you see, until you live that, you don't get that. You don't. Until you see what you're worth, until you understand that you're a valuable commodity, until you get to see that your capacity for recognition translates into success. And not just success for you. You're here to bring success to groups. You're here to bring success to large collections of, humans. This is your skill set. How many people and what you can guide, again, is dependent on what's the knowledge base that you're working from. Because it ultimately is where you're going to apply your skills. See, when I first started to do my professional work in the early 90s, I'm integration, so I didn't have any, I was never really interested in other people, so it was quite a shock for me to spend all this time looking at people's lives, all that stuff. And what really disturbed me was how much self-loathing there was. I mean, it was a shock to me, the way in which people thought about themselves. The way this conditioning has worked from the moment they came into the world, that you got a parent that points at you and says you could, or you should have, or why aren't you like Janie or Johnny, or why can't you do this, or what's your problem? And, you go in the mirror and you look in the mirror and say, Jesus, I don't want to be this one. What else can I be? Human beings, they have such a terrible sense of how special and how valuable they are as creatures on this plane. Don't see that. Don't see it at all. And then you can't, in those situations, make your demand, because you don't see your own value. It's the same thing about what it means to be radical and let go and really be a projector. You genuinely have to trust. You have to trust. It is all there. You have to see what that is to allow life to come to you. Because every time it comes to you, you can go, yes, but. And it doesn't matter what it is. And that's the thing that puts a smile on your face and the sweetness in your voice. Are those delicious moments where you're invited and you get to say yes, but, and you get your cake and you get to eat it too. I mean, this is what projectors are here for. This is what it means not to work. You don't have to work at these things. You have to allow them to come, and then you use your recognition capacity and you use your skill set, whatever it is, to fulfill the obligations that are there. And you get your reward. And it doesn't feel like work at all, because this is where you're meant to be. Because this is who you are, and this is what you're capable of. Okay, let's have a break.